Make no mistake about it. In order for a team to be successful, it comes down to one thing, and that's great leadership. Not leadership from the coaches, but leadership from the players. So with that being said, on today's video, we're going to look at some of the NFL GOATs and look at how they exactly led their teams to championships. Let's get into it.
Time is dead, game time! Time is dead, game time! Here we go! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Gotta be better than that! That ain't gonna win! That's not gonna win! That's good enough to suck right there!
Now, before we really dive into this thing, it is important to note what leadership means. And what leadership means to me is this, and it's very easy to understand. Leadership is a person trying to lead a group of people to achieve a common goal. That's the easy part, but here's the hard part, and here's what people sometimes fail to understand, especially young athletes, and that there's a million different ways that that person can go to take that group of people to achieve a common goal. They can do it in a motivational way, let's go Johnny, that type of thing. They can do it with an iron fist, really holding people accountable, or they can do it kind of behind the scenes in a quiet manner where they do all the little things right and just really lead by example. And with that being said, we're going to look at 5 NFL legends, 5 elite leaders, and look at how they led because they all led in kind of their own unique way. So, the first type of leader we're going to look at is that motivational, passionate leader, and the guy we got to use for that is none other. I grew up a big-time Baltimore Ravens fan. I grew up with posters of this guy on every single wall. This guy brought the juice every single Sunday, and I'm talking about a heat-sinking middle linebacker by the name of Ray Lewis.
Sanchez throws middle. What a shot by Lewis on Dustin Keller. As the ball arrived, shoulder pad level and down, so there's no penalty.
See if you can hear this. This is a hard knock. The master of disaster, 15 years he's been lighting people up over the middle.
And a perfectly clean hit.
When looking at Ray Lewis, there's one moment from his career that really stands out to me, and I know it'll stand out to the Ravens flock fan base. But this really sums him up as a man and an overall leader. And this takes place in the year 2011. 2011, I'm just finishing up a wrestling tournament. It's cold, it's dark. We get in the car, my pops turns up the radio, and we're listening to the AFC Championship game. Baltimore Ravens up in Foxborough against the New England Patriots. The score is 23-20. Not too much time left, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and the Ravens are on a game-winning drive. They have a chance to score a touchdown, win the game, or at the very minimum, we're kicking a field goal, and they're sending this thing to overtime. Ravens get down. They have a couple cracks in the end zone. Don't get it. They're settling for the field goal. Billy Cundiff, about a 30-something yard field goal, doinks it right off the goalpost. One of the most heartbreaking Ravens losses of all time. I'm in the car. I'm crying. My dad's yelling at the radio, and I'm just so upset the whole car ride home. Anyway, we get home. I put ESPN. I run to the TV, put ESPN on, and when I turn it on, there's Ray Lewis in the locker room, and he gave one of the best speeches. I'll remember this the rest of my life to his team. He told them, pick your heads up, stop being so down. God has a plan for us. God doesn't make mistakes. He's talking about people fighting cancer, and there's so much bigger problems out there. And he's like, we're going to come back next year. We're going to use this as motivation, and we're going to win this thing next year. This is a good moment for us. And it was just so inspiring. It cheered me up. And you can look at the guys in the locker room. People went from screaming and throwing stuff and yelling to really listening and kind of, he's right, he's right, he's right. Well, fast forward, following year, 2012, guess what? Ray's still that passionate leader, and he leads his guys. He leads that Baltimore Ravens the very next season to a Super Bowl victory. And that's who Ray Lewis is. He is that type of guy, and that will just forever stick out to me.
Yeah, y'all. God has never made a mistake. He's never made one mistake. All right? So it ain't about one play. It ain't about nothing. This year, we did what we were supposed to do. We fought as a team. We fought as a team. There will be one Super Bowl champ crown at the end of this year. That's it. So the way we feel, somebody gonna feel like that tomorrow, and somebody gonna feel like that in a week. That's a fact. And the fact is, we got to come back and go to work to make sure we finish it next time. That's all we got to do.
The thing about Ray Lewis is this, and this is extremely important to listen to, especially if you're a young athlete. Ray Lewis was able to give those speeches and get his guys fired up and really hit their souls because he took care of his business on the field and off the field. On the field, he's running through people, destroying people, knocking people's heads off, 15, 20 tackles a game. And then off the field, he's having his teammates over. He's hosting film sessions. He's busting his ass in the weight room. On the practice field, he's taking every rep like it's a game rep. I mean, this guy was through and through a legend on both on and off the field. And that's important to note because let me tell you something. I played at Ohio State and I played at USC. And I can't tell you how many times a guy would get up in front of the team and give a really good speech, but you're listening to the guy and you know that he's bullshitting off the field. He's not really, he's not really a dog. He's kind of messing around in the weight room. He's kind of fucking around in the classroom, all that stuff. So he's talking. You're like, dude, I'm not going to listen to you. You're a clown. I'm not going to listen to you. So if you're a young guy, if you want to get your guys fired up and give those Ray Lewis type of speeches and be that motivational leader, you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself first and handling your business on and off the field. Now, the next type of leader we're going to look at is that guy who led with that iron fist. He held his teammates accountable, did everything right himself, but held his teammates to that same high standard he held himself to. And for that, we got to talk about none other than the GOAT, Tom Brady.
So you got to score. Brady to the end zone, and Tompkins with a touchdown.
Now, over the last couple years, there's been a big-time debate, and everybody knows what debate I'm talking about. Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick. Who was more important to that dynasty run by the New England Patriots? And my answer would be this. I think both are legendary, but when you look at who was the more influential, responsible for that type of run, I'm going to go with Tom Brady. And for me, it's this. I think culture wins championships, and I think Tom Brady created that culture. And he's talked about this. He hasn't directly said, I'm responsible for it. But you'll hear Tom Brady time and time again talk about, I created a culture for myself. I created a standard for myself. And once I attained that standard, I held the teammates around me accountable to reaching that standard. And because he did that, that's how he created a championship culture in New England. And an example of this, we got to look at the Super Bowl. Against the Falcons, they're down 28-3. How do you come back? That's Tom Brady going up and down the sideline saying, we got to be tough. We got to fight. We got to play harder. We got to play tougher. We got to play faster. We got to play harder. We got to play tougher. We got to play faster. Just saying that over and over again. He's saying that to himself, and he's saying that to his teammates, and he knows he's going to go out there and play harder, faster, and tougher. So if his receivers aren't going out there playing that way, he's going to get after them, and that's what he did that whole second half, and he talked about it. He talked about the importance of mental toughness and how he wanted to be mental tough and how he wanted his guys and get that out of his teammates for them to be mentally tough. And that's who Tom Brady is, and that's why he was able to win all those Super Bowls and have that much success, because he created that foundation for himself and held his teammates to that standard.
Mental toughness means a lot. And, I'm always trying to get that out of my teammates.
Gotta play tougher, harder, tougher, everything.
And I think part of that is letting everybody else know that it's time to go out there and perform.
Brady, end zone touchdown.
Without a doubt, this type of leadership is the most important to achieve, but it's also the hardest to achieve. And especially in today's world. I feel like today society has just gotten way too soft and way too sensitive. So if you try to correct a guy in today's age, they just kind of freak out and spaz out and won't talk to you again. But you got to be willing to get over that and still do it anyway. If you're on a team and you're holding yourself to a high standard, you're doing all the little things right, you got to hold your teammates accountable. And the ones who want to be great and want to be part of a championship team, they'll buy in and they'll understand. And the losers and kind of the guys who don't really give a shit, they're going to freak out and not be your friend anymore. So you got to be willing to fight through that, push through that kind of barrier, and just get after your teammates and hold them accountable in a respectful way, but also setting that tone. Okay, moving on. We've talked about Ray Lewis, who's going to be that motivational, fiery, passionate dude. We've talked about Tom Brady, who's going to hold his guys accountable and really get after them. Now we're going to dial it back. We're going to look at a quiet, lead by example, kind of humble servant, spiritual leader. And there's nobody better to mention and use as an example for this than former Pittsburgh Steelers safety Troy Polamalu.
He downfield into
Whoa.
traffic, and what an interception, one-handed by Troy Polamalu.
Polamalu, how about
Great
that?
play.
Oh my goodness. Off the head, Polamalu with the interception. Troy Polamalu has done it again.
When talking about Troy Polamalu, I'm going to talk about a personal story because I think it really shows Troy's character and kind of the type of leader that he is. So anyway, 2 years ago, I'm working out at the USC weight room with my buddy Max Williams, another safety at the time. And as we're working out, a guy comes walking in that looks just like Troy, but from a distance you can't tell. But then we see our defensive line coach, Coach Nua. He sees us, he calls us down, and as we approach, it's clearly Troy. And I got to tell you, right when we started talking to him, you could just feel that selflessness and that kind of humble, just good energy coming from him. And you could really tell that he was genuine. He took the time to ask us questions about us. And you could tell that he really cared what we had to say, and he offered some advice. And it was just a great interaction through and through. And I really appreciate it because some of these NFL legends from Ohio State and USC, most of them are great, but there are some of them who have huge egos and don't really want anything to do with you. But with that being said, given that Troy went to USC, I do know a lot of people who interact with them on a personal level. And everybody you talk to talks about what a great mentor this guy is. And giving an example of this is Talanoa Hufanga. Played at SC. He's one of the best safeties to play in recent years. He's playing with the Broncos now. But Troy took this guy under his wing and really mentored him. And people just say that Troy is that guy. I mean, he is the guy who's going to make sure everybody's good. And then when you look at some of his teammates that play with him in Pittsburgh, you'll see countless quotes about guys saying in the locker room they love talking to Troy better than anybody else because he can connect with them on a deeper level and make them feel good about themselves. He's that guy in the locker room that keeps everybody's spirits positive and just really making sure everybody spiritually is in the right place.
I fostered an obsession with the game early on that I modeled after meticulous regiments of some of the greatest artists of past. Dickens, Beethoven, Demostheni. These great men were known to have a beast-like work ethic, coupled with an unwavering ability to create until perfection, beyond what most believe the human body will allow. To me, that's what it takes from being ordinary to extraordinary. It is the willingness to push beyond what the brain says to the body is possible and create a new order of boundaries for oneself.
Now, the lesson we can learn from Troy is this. Take the time to have genuine conversation with your teammates and connect with them on a deep level. Because I promise you, there's somebody on your team who's going through something and it's weighing on them, but nobody's really talked to them. Nobody's really sat down with them and asked them how they're doing and really make sure their spirits are okay. And if you go around and just every single day pick one teammate to sit down next to and really ask questions and learn about them, you would be surprised how you can help them and how they can help you. And that's how you can be a really, really impactful leader. You don't need to get up and be that rah-rah guy. You don't need to be yelling at people and holding them accountable. But you can go around and be a great teammate and connect with your teammates and really help people that way. Okay, next up, we got my favorite type of leader. Now, I've said a bunch of times that you can't be a great leader unless you take care of your business on and off the field. And this is true. But every now and then will come along a guy who shows up on game day and pours every drop of his blood, every ounce of his soul, just puts his body, his bones, his spirit on the line every single play in every single game. And because of this, it just inspires his teammates and elevates all of his teammates to play that much harder. And with that being said, a guy who did this throughout his entire career is a gunslinging quarterback, one of the greatest gunslingers, the greatest gunslinger of all time, Brett Favre.
Well, on a night like tonight, this has to be the greatest place in the world for Brett Favre to be. Therapeutic, on the field, playing football, next to last in rushing defense. And Favre throws, and that is caught by Wesley Walls for a touchdown.
I could go on and on and on about Brett Favre. I know he's dealing with stuff off the field today. I'm not really sure what that is. But looking at his football career, this guy delivered gutsy performance after gutsy performance. And in fact, I think he holds one of the craziest records of all time, and nobody really talks about it. And that's he had with regular season and postseason, he had 321 consecutive starts. I don't think the normal person understands how impressive that is. The game of football is as violent as it gets. When I was playing college, half the guys don't make it through a season. And I can't imagine playing 16 games in the NFL and then 18 or 19 once you're in the postseason. And Brett Favre is just as tough as it gets. But when you want to talk about leadership, you got to look at when he's with the Minnesota Vikings playing against the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs. And this is when the Saints had the bounty gate. And they set a big bounty on Brett Favre's head. And I'm going to show the highlights after I talk here. But they were hitting him dirty, hitting him low, hitting him late, and just knocking him out every single play. By the end of this thing, he couldn't walk and pretty much had to get carried off on a stretcher. And I tell you this, when you're playing with a guy who's taking a beating like that, but he keeps getting up, he keeps bouncing back, he keeps delivering, he keeps fighting for your team, it makes you fight so much harder. It makes you look at yourself in the mirror, makes you dig deeper, makes you want to pull something out of you that you didn't know you had. And that's why I say Brett Favre is one of the best leaders of all time, because the way he showed up, the way he put his body on the line, never come out of the game, and just gave his teammates and gave the game of football everything he had is very, very inspirational.
You're going to see him come in late, right? As Favre lets go of the ball and a clean hit. So you're right, Joe. They've gotten some knockdowns on Brett.
That is the third personal foul, but Brett Favre doesn't look healthy as he staggers around and now squats down at the 30-yard line.
You see Hargrove, he comes right inside, and I think that was a bad call. You know, I mean, he's in contact with Favre, and he's just making a tackle at the end of the play. I mean, that's the way they teach Pop Warner.
Favre needs help getting off the field. Jonathan Vilma.
The lesson from Brett Favre is very simple. If you want to be a respected leader in the game of football, you have to be a tough-ass dude, and you have to fight through some injuries. That's just a fact. So, let's move on to our final leader, and this is a guy who I think exemplifies everything we've been talking about. He held his guys accountable, he motivated his guys, he connected with them on a deep level, and he played through a lot of injuries and was just a tough dude. And that's New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees.
28, here is Brees with time. End zone shot. They are down. Touchdown New Orleans. Tommy Lee Lewis. First down New Orleans. And Brees, play action. End zone wide open for the walk-in touchdown. Austin Carr. 37, Brees doing it. At 39, going up top. And it's caught by Dan Arnold.
When you look at Drew Brees, yes, I said he has the full package, and I'm standing by it. He can motivate, he can do all that stuff that I just talked about. I'm not going to bring it back up. But what makes him stand out to me, what really separates him, is that he was able to build that camaraderie and bring his team together better than anybody else, I think. He was always having team bonding events. He was always taking his guys out to dinner. He was always like preaching that brotherhood, building that brotherhood. And I think when you look at Drew, something that New Orleans fans really love about him is his efforts after Hurricane Katrina. He made sure to be out in that community, connecting with the fans, making sure his guys were out in the community, and he had that whole city of New Orleans feeling like a brotherhood, feeling like a family. And I think only Drew Brees could have done that. So the lesson with Drew is this: if you want your team to win, you got to be a great leader. But if you want them to be great, you got to form a brotherhood. And this calls for doing stuff outside of the locker room, outside of scheduled events. Go with a group of guys out to dinner. Go play paintball. Go do stuff together. And that's how you form a brotherhood. Go connect with your community. And once you get the whole community and your brotherhood really as one, then you're going to start noticing a big-time difference.
In 1984,
that's how you break a record on a touchdown pass, baby.
There may be only one name that goes in the record book, but it's all about you guys.
Drew Brees passes Johnny Unitas, throwing a touchdown in his 48th straight game.
First of all, it's a team record. It's not an individual record.
Drew Brees passes Brett Favre as the NFL's all-time leader in completions.
A lot of hands have caught those passes.
And that wraps up today's video on leadership. Those are the 5 guys who really inspired me growing up. I know people out there watching this have people who inspired them and really exemplified leadership. So do me a favor, head down to that comment section below and talk about who was your favorite leader growing up, and we can have a conversation. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because there's plenty of good stuff coming out and you're not going to want to miss it.